My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I was 39 years old when my life split cleanly into before and after, not with screaming, not with a confession, but with a sentence delivered as casually as a grocery list item. "I'm going on a date with a coworker," Daniel said. He was standing in his kitchen doorway like he always did, one shoulder against the frame, keys in hand, jacket half zipped. The smell of coffee was still hanging in the air. The dishwasher hummed. Homework papers were spread across the dining table upstairs where our daughters were arguing about whose turn it was to use the blue pen. 19 years together, and he said it like he was telling me he'd be late for dinner. I looked up from my laptop slowly. I'd been reviewing invoices for a freelance consulting project, my glasses sliding down my nose the way they always did when I'd been staring too long. "I'm sorry," I said. "What?" He sighed, already tired of the conversation I hadn't even started yet. "You heard me, Ellie. Dinner. Just dinner." He adjusted his collar, checking his reflection in the dark microwave door. "Her name's Rachel." The name didn't ring a bell at first. That came later. My coffee mug felt suddenly too heavy in my hand. "You're going on a date," I repeated, each word slow, measured, like stepping onto cracked ice. "With another woman." Yes, no hesitation, no shame, just fact. I stood up. The chair legs scraped loudly against the tile, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch, just a little. "What the hell are you talking about, Daniel?" He rolled his eyes, the way he'd started doing more often in the last year. "I need some excitement in my life. I need to feel noticed." "I notice you," I said immediately, and hated how defensive it sounded. "When?" he shot back. "Between your work deadlines and falling asleep with spreadsheets open on your chest?" That one landed, because it wasn't entirely wrong, but neither was it the whole truth. "I'm not dead yet," he continued. "I'm 40. I don't want to wake up at 50 and realize I wasted my life being invisible." Behind him, the hallway light flickered. Upstairs, I heard our eldest daughter, Maya, laughing at something her sister Lucy had said. That sound, pure, careless, felt like glass in my chest. "If you walk out that door," I said quietly, surprised by how steady my voice was, "everything changes. You understand that, right?" For a moment, just a heartbeat, he paused. His hand rested on the doorknob. I let myself hope. Stupid, reflexive hope, built from nearly 2 decades of shared mornings and late-night whispers. Then he turned back to me. "Good," he said. "Maybe it's time." The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than a gunshot. I stood there long after his footsteps faded, staring at the door like it might reopen on its own. Like 19 years could rewind if I just stayed still enough. "Mom!" Maya's voice came from the stairs. She and Lucy were leaning over the banister, identical expressions of curiosity and unease on their faces. Faces that looked just like his. "Where's Dad going all dressed up?" I swallowed. "Work thing," I said. The lie tasted metallic. "How's homework?" "Done," Lucy said quickly. "Can we watch a movie?" "Sure," I replied. "Pick something." They disappeared upstairs in a storm of opinions and sibling rivalry. I walked to the window and watched Daniel's car pull away down Oak Ridge Lane, the same street where Maya learned to ride a bike, where Lucy once chalked hearts on the sidewalk that still hadn't fully faded. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Don't wait up." I poured the rest of my coffee down the sink and opened a bottle of wine instead. That night, lying alone in our bed, staring at the ceiling fan, tracing lazy circles in the dark, I understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't confusion. This was a choice. And choices, once made, have consequences. The next morning, Daniel moved through the house like nothing had happened. That was the part that rearranged something inside me. More than the word date, more than the door clicking shut. He came downstairs in his work clothes, poured himself coffee, leaned over and kissed Lucy on the top of her head like he always did. He asked Maya if her science project was due today or tomorrow. He even glanced at me and said casually, "Busy day?" As if the night before hadn't detonated in my kitchen. "As usual," I answered, because I didn't trust my voice with anything more. He smiled the smile people use when they want to end a conversation before it starts. Then he grabbed his keys and left with the ease of a man who believed the world would keep spinning exactly the way it always had. Because it always had. I waited until the girls were at school before I let myself breathe. The house was quiet in that way it only ever got when they were gone. No footsteps, no cartoons, no arguments over snacks. Just the ticking clock above the stove and the low hum of the refrigerator. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom for a long time. There are moments where your body knows the truth before your mind is ready to name it. My stomach felt hollow. My hands were cold. I walked in, slow, like stepping into a crime scene you don't want to contaminate. Nothing looked different. The bed was made. The laundry basket sat in the corner. The framed photos of the four of us at the beach stared back at me, Maya missing her front teeth, Lucy holding a seashell like it was treasure, Daniel's arm around my shoulders like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. But the air felt wrong, and then I caught it. A faint, sweet scent. Women's perfume, not mine. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It lingered like a secret someone thought they'd wiped away. I stood there, staring at the pillow beside mine, and the first thought that flashed through my head was brutally simple. Rachel wasn't just dinner. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't call my best friend and collapse into sobs. Not because I was strong, because my body went still the way it does right before a storm. I had spent years managing a household and a career and 2 children and a man who gradually required more emotional labor than he ever admitted. I knew how to be calm under pressure. If Daniel wanted to play this like a casual reinvention of his life, I needed facts. Real ones, not feelings. That afternoon, I tried to work. Tried to pretend my laptop screen wasn't blurred by the constant pressure behind my eyes. My brain kept replaying his voice in the doorway. I'm going on a date, like it was normal. Like I should accept it because he'd decided his boredom mattered more than our vows. At 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A notification from our shared calendar. Daniel had added something new. Dinner, our 8 p.m. Just a single letter like that made it neat. Respectable. Like he'd disguised betrayal with punctuation. I stared at it for a long time. Then, as if my hands were moving on their own, I stood up and went to the laundry room. I wasn't proud of what I did next. But pride is a luxury you lose when the floor drops out from under your life. Daniel had always been careless with his pockets. Over the years, I'd found receipts, loose change, business cards, tiny folded notes. I'd thrown them away without thinking. Today I went looking. I pulled his jeans from the hamper and checked the pockets. Nothing. The jacket he wore the night before was draped over a chair in our room. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it like it belonged to someone else. I reached into the inside pocket. My fingers touched paper. A receipt. I unfolded it slowly like it might burn my skin. Westin Hotel, bar lounge. 2 drinks. Expensive ones. Time stamped. Last night. My pulse didn't race. It sank. Because this wasn't speculation now. This wasn't paranoia. It was ink on paper. It was proof. I set the receipt on the counter like an exhibit in court and stared at it until my eyes started to sting. Then I went to his car. Daniel kept it clean, almost obsessively. But people always miss what they don't expect anyone to look for. I opened the passenger door and crouched down, scanning the floor, the compartment, the edges of the seat. And there it was, tucked under the mat like a slipped confession. A small scrap of paper with a number written in blue ink. And beneath it, Rachel. My throat tightened. The last piece didn't come from searching, though. It came from carelessness. That evening, I was in the bathroom, wiping down the sink, because cleaning is what my hands did when my mind didn't know where to go. Daniel's phone was charging on the counter. It buzzed. I didn't pick it up at first. I told myself I wouldn't be that woman, snooping, spiraling, turning herself into someone she didn't recognize. Then the screen lit up again. A preview message. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. R. For a second, I felt like I couldn't stand, like my bones had softened inside my skin. 19 years together, condensed into one line of text. No explanation, no apology, just anticipation. Amazing. I set the cleaning cloth down very carefully, because my hands were shaking and I didn't want to break anything that would make noise. I stared at his phone like it was a live wire. And in that quiet, I understood the most humiliating truth of all. Daniel hadn't been unsure. He'd been planning. The front door opened downstairs. I heard his voice call out, bright, almost cheerful. Ellie, I'm home! I placed the phone back exactly where it was and walked out of the bathroom. Each step felt deliberate, like I was choosing the person I would be from now on. He was in the kitchen when I came down, looking lighter, flushed, happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. How was your day? I asked. Long, he said, grabbing a glass and filling it with water. He still didn't look at me. Same old. I nodded slowly. Long day, huh? His eyes snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said smoothly. Just agreeing with you. The space between us thickened. Our kitchen, the room where we'd iced cupcakes for birthdays, where we'd argued about bills, where the girls had measured their height against the pantry doorframe, felt suddenly unfamiliar. Daniel cleared his throat. I'm tired. Going to bed. Good night, I said. He paused at the bottom of the stairs, like he was waiting for something. A fight, a plea, tears. "Are you coming up?" he asked. "I have work," I replied. He shrugged, like I'd confirmed whatever story he'd already written about me. Then he went upstairs. I waited. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, until I heard the creak of the mattress, until the house settled. Then I opened my laptop. Not to cry, not to type an angry message, not to scroll social media like a wounded animal. I searched. Rachel plus Daniel's company. It didn't take long. Her profile popped up. Bright smile, polished headshot, captions about living boldly and choosing happiness. A few mutual connections. A timeline that revealed the detail my stomach had been holding back all day. She wasn't just a coworker. She was his ex. The kind of ex that never fully leaves. The one people pretend doesn't matter until she does. I stared at her picture until my eyes went dull. So that was the twist Daniel had tried to hide in plain sight. He wasn't chasing random excitement. He was returning to a familiar door, one he'd left unlocked in his mind for years. A door he was now walking through without even checking if anyone was still inside our home. I closed the laptop. In the dark, I lay in bed beside the man I'd built a life with, listening to his breathing, and made a decision so quiet it almost didn't feel real. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to confront him the next morning, when the girls were gone, when the house was silent, when he couldn't perform for anyone. And when I did, he would have a choice. Rachel, or this family. Because he didn't get to keep both. I waited until the girls were gone. That part mattered more than anything else. Maya left first, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds already in. Lucy followed, stopping to hug me tight around the waist like she sensed something she didn't have words for yet. "Love you, Mom," she said. "I love you too," I replied, and meant it with a fierceness that surprised me. When the front door closed behind them, the house exhaled into silence. Daniel was in the bathroom, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie with slow precision. The same tie he wore to meetings where he needed to look trustworthy. "We need to talk," I said from the doorway. He sighed without turning around. "Can it wait? I'm already running late." "No." Something in my voice finally made him look at me. I stepped into the bathroom and closed the door behind me. The click echoed louder than it should have. "I know about Rachel," I said. He blinked once, then again. In the mirror, I watched his face go through calculation before settling into something cooler. "I don't know what you're talking about." I reached into my pocket and placed the receipt on the counter between us. "Weston Hotel, 2 drinks, last night." He stared at it like it might disappear if he didn't acknowledge it. "You went through my things," he said finally, his voice sharp. "You left them where I could find them," I replied. "Maybe part of you wanted me to." "Don't psychoanalyze me." "Then don't lie to me." The silence stretched, heavy, pressurized. "How long?" I asked. "How long has this been going on?" He crossed his arms, defensive. "It's not what you think." "What I think is that my boyfriend of 19 years is sleeping with his ex-girlfriend." His jaw tightened. "Am I wrong?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. "So what if I am?" he said finally, lifting his chin. "What are you going to do about it?" The audacity of the question hit me harder than the affair itself. What was I going to do? Cry? Beg? Threaten to call his mother? "I'm giving you a choice," I said. "End it. Today. Or you leave this house." He laughed, actually laughed. "You can't kick me out, Ellie. My name's on the lease." "You're right," I said calmly. "I can't kick you out, but I can't stop making this place comfortable for you." He studied me like he was trying to recognize someone new. "Is that a threat?" "It's a boundary." "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I stepped closer. "Does Rachel know about the girls? About how they think you're working late while you're drinking hotel cocktails with her?" His face flushed. "Don't bring them into this." "You brought them into it when you decided your excitement mattered more than their stability." I turned to leave, then stopped. "You have until tonight," I said. "Rachel, or this family." I left him standing there, tie crooked, reflection fractured. That evening, I came home to a suitcase in the hallway. Daniel was loading boxes into his car, movement stiff and angry. "I'm going to my mother's," he said without looking at me. "I need space." "What about the girls?" "They can visit on weekends." Visit. Like he was moving across town, not abandoning the home they'd known their whole lives. He drove away without another word. That night, after I'd tucked the girls into bed and answered their questions with soft half-truths, I sat alone at the kitchen table and understood the mistake Daniel had made. He thought I'd wait. He thought I'd keep paying the bills, keep holding the structure together, keep absorbing the damage while he figured out his new life. He thought I was the safety net he could step away from and return to whenever it suited him. He was wrong. Because if Daniel wanted independence, he was about to learn how expensive it really was. I didn't do anything dramatic that first night after Daniel left. No revenge texts, no late-night phone calls, no wine-fueled breakdown on the kitchen floor. I slept. Not well, but enough to wake up clear. By morning, grief had hardened into something colder and far more useful: resolve. Daniel had walked out believing two things were still guaranteed: that the house would keep running, and that I would keep paying for the life he'd grown accustomed to. He was wrong on both counts. I waited until the girls were at school before I made the calls. The first one was to our bank. I spoke calmly, professionally, like this was any other administrative change. Yes, I said, I need to remove Daniel Whitmore as an authorized user on my primary checking account. The account had always been mine, opened years before we moved in together. His name added later for convenience. Of course, Ms. Whitmore, the representative replied, effective immediately. Click. One safety net gone. The savings account was more complicated, but still manageable. My freelance consulting income made up the bulk of it. My lawyer had already confirmed my options. The credit cards were easier. Every single one tied to my credit score, my income, my liability. Canceled. By noon, Daniel's wallet had become a collection of decorative plastic. The phone plan was next. Family plan. My name. My responsibility. Not anymore. I removed his line. Then I paused. Because the last call wasn't about us. It was about his mother's house. 3 years earlier, after his father died, foreclosure had loomed. Daniel had panicked. His mother had cried at our kitchen table. I'd refinanced the mortgage in my name. $500 a month. Every month. Quietly. Reliably. That obligation ended today. Yes, I told the mortgage representative. Please send me the paperwork to transfer the responsibility back. I hung up and sat back in my chair. By lunchtime, Daniel's version of independence had collapsed like a house built on borrowed beams. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. What did you do? Daniel's voice exploded through the line. I stopped paying for your life, I said evenly. You can't just cancel my cards. They weren't yours. My phone was on my plan. My mother's house was never your responsibility to outsource. Silence crackled on the line. Ellie, his voice dropped, smaller now, be reasonable. We can work this out. We could have worked it out before you went back to Rachel. How did you... He stopped himself. Look, I made a mistake. You made a choice. What about the girls? He snapped. You're hurting them too. That one hit, but I'd already done the math. They're fed. They're safe. They're loved. If you want to see them, you can. But you don't get to keep the benefits of this family after you walked out on it. I hung up. That afternoon, I took the girls for ice cream. They deserved the truth. Carefully measured, not weaponized. Dad met someone else, I said simply. He decided he didn't want to live here anymore. Lucy's eyes filled instantly. Doesn't he love us? He does, I said softly. But sometimes adults make selfish decisions. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, good. I looked at her, startled. He's been mean to you for months, she continued. We noticed. Children always do. That evening, someone else showed up at my door. Rachel. She looked confident until she saw me. You must be Eleanor, she said, forcing a smile. We should talk. No, I replied. We really shouldn't. You're being vindictive. I'm being done. You ruined his life. No, I corrected. I stopped financing it. She scoffed. You think you won? I don't think about you at all. Her smile faltered. That was the moment she realized something important. She hadn't won a man. She'd inherited a liability. Later that night, Daniel texted. Rachel's freaking out. She didn't know about the house. Or the cards. I stared at the message, then typed back. You should have told her. Transparency matters. I turned off my phone. Because this wasn't punishment. It was consequence. And consequences don't negotiate. 3 weeks after Daniel walked out, his fantasy started sending invoices. I wasn't there when it happened, but I didn't need to be. The internet has a way of delivering consequences with subtitles and commentary. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk reviewing a contract when my phone buzzed non-stop with messages from people who hadn't spoken to me in months. Have you seen this? Is that Daniel? I'm so sorry. I clicked the link. The video was shaky, obviously filmed from a car across the parking lot. The audio, unfortunately, was perfect. Daniel was standing outside a restaurant, his voice raised, hands cutting the air like he was trying to carve logic into the moment. Rachel sat in the passenger seat of his car, mascara streaked, shoulders shaking. $800, Rachel, his voice cracked with disbelief. 800 at Nordstrom. I needed clothes, she sobbed. I have interviews. You've had 2 interviews in 3 weeks. People were staring. Phones were out. Someone laughed nervously in the background. I said I'd help you get back on your feet, Daniel continued, not fund your shopping addiction. Rachel's voice dropped, desperate. You said you'd take care of me. I said I'd support you, not replace your ex. That line hit harder than anything else, because now the truth was public. He wasn't a rescuer, he was a replacement ATM that had already hit overdraft. The video ended with Daniel getting into the car, slamming the door, and peeling out of the parking lot while Rachel cried in the passenger seat. I closed my laptop slowly. I felt no triumph, no glee, just a quiet, bone-deep confirmation. I had been right. That night, Daniel came back. Not with confidence, not with anger, with exhaustion. He rang the doorbell instead of using his key, because I'd changed the locks. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. Wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes, the posture of a man whose certainty had collapsed. Can we talk? He asked. I stepped aside, not to welcome him, just to keep the girls from hearing. Rachel wasn't with him. That too mattered. She says I ruined her life, he said, rubbing his face. She didn't know how many things you handled. I told you transparency mattered. She thought you were exaggerating, he admitted. She thought you were controlling. I almost laughed. Almost? She's moving out, he continued. She says I'm too complicated. I waited. He looked up at me then, really looked. I made a mistake, Ellie. There it was, the sentence he'd saved like a get-out-of-jail card. I'm willing to fix it, he added quickly. I'll end it with her. I already did. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied him carefully. The man in front of me wasn't repentant because he'd hurt me. He was repentant because the fantasy had started charging rent. You didn't choose me when it mattered, I said quietly. You chose novelty, and you did it knowing exactly what it would cost. I didn't think... No, I interrupted. You didn't care. His mouth opened, closed. I can't go back, I continued. Not because I'm angry, because I finally see you clearly. He swallowed. What about the girls? You're their father. That doesn't change. But you don't get to come home just because the alternative is uncomfortable. Silence stretched between us. Then he nodded, slowly, like someone finally understanding the rules of a game they thought they were winning. I'll figure something out, he said. Yes, I replied, you will. He left without another word. That night, I tucked the girls into bed and sat on the edge of Lucy's mattress while she played with the hem of my sleeve. Is Dad okay? She asked. He's learning, I said. Maya looked at me from across the room. Are you okay? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I said yes, because the fantasy was over, and reality, finally, had a lease agreement no one could ignore. The paperwork arrived on a Thursday. Not by email, not by a careful conversation. By courier. A thick envelope left on my front porch like a challenge. Petition for dissolution of domestic partnership. Filed by Daniel Whitmore. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once helped him draft resumes and plan promotions, and read every page without blinking. He was asking for spousal support, joint custody, and half the equity in the house. On what grounds? Emotional cruelty. Financial abandonment. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, because it was desperate. My lawyer, Marianne Cole, didn't laugh. She was calm, composed, and terrifyingly thorough, the kind of woman who spoke softly because she never needed to raise her voice. He's reaching, she said, scanning the documents. But family court doesn't reward logic, it rewards narratives. What's his narrative? I asked. That you cut him off financially to punish him. That you destabilized his life. I stopped paying for choices he made. Yes, she agreed. But we'll need to prove intent wasn't malice. It was protection. I nodded. I'd been protecting someone this whole time. Just not him. Daniel tried to control the story first. He started calling mutual friends, posting vague quotes about betrayal and resilience, letting people fill in blanks he didn't want to explain. It worked on a few, until Rachel spoke up. Not to defend me, she didn't care about me, but to save herself. Screenshots surfaced, messages, proof that Daniel had promised her things he couldn't deliver and blamed me when reality caught up. By the time mediation rolled around, his story had holes big enough to fall through. The girls handled it better than anyone expected. Kids always do when someone finally stops pretending. At dinner one night, Maya pushed her food around her plate and said casually, Dad lies when he feels guilty. Lucy nodded. He does the smile thing. I froze. What smile thing? I asked. The tight one, Lucy said, stretching her mouth. The one where he thinks he's being nice. I swallowed hard. They'd been watching longer than I realized. Court wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no slammed gavels. Just hours of quiet dismantling. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue that cutting off access to shared finances was punitive. Marianne countered with bank records, timelines, and receipts showing whose income sustained what. Daniel was employed, able-bodied, fully capable of supporting himself, and he'd left. That mattered. By the end of the day, the judge looked tired, but unconvinced by his claims. The ruling came 2 weeks later. Minimal spousal support. Temporary, 18 months. Primary residence awarded to me. Joint legal custody, but physical custody with me. Daniel would have weekends, supervised at first, because trust isn't automatic once it's broken. That night, Daniel called. Not angry, not pleading, just hollow. I didn't think it would end like this, he said. It didn't, I replied. It changed. Silence. I miss the girls. They miss the version of you that showed up, I said gently. You can still be that, if you choose to. I don't know how. Then learn, I said, like the rest of us. After I hung up, I went outside and sat on the porch steps. The house was quiet, safe, ours. Inside, 2 girls were doing homework at the same table where their father once planned an escape he didn't understand the cost of. Children don't need perfect parents. They need honest ones. And for the first time since that sentence in the doorway, I'm going on a date. I felt something settle. Not victory. Not revenge. Stability. The kind that lasts. 6 months after Daniel walked out, the house sounded different. Not quieter, just steadier. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel like someone left something unfinished behind. The kind that settles into the walls and stays. It was a Sunday afternoon. Maya was sprawled on the living room floor with textbooks open, headphones on, mouthing words to herself as she studied. Lucy was in the backyard, crouched over a patch of dirt she'd decided would become a garden, even though she didn't yet know what she wanted to grow. I sat on the porch with a mug of tea I kept forgetting to drink, watching the sunlight shift across the lawn. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It came in small confirmations, like not checking my phone every time it buzzed, like realizing I no longer flinched when I heard a car slow down outside, like laughing, really laughing, without wondering if it would irritate someone else. Daniel came on Saturdays now. He showed up on time. He brought snacks the girls liked. He listened more than he talked. It was awkward, careful, earned. That was the part people never talk about, how rebuilding trust isn't dramatic. It's repetitive, humbling, quiet. Rachel was gone. She'd moved on to someone else within weeks, according to mutual acquaintances who thought I wanted updates. I didn't. Daniel had lost more than a relationship. He'd lost the illusion that excitement was the same thing as happiness. I hoped he'd learned something. I no longer needed to know. The divorce finalized without ceremony. No courtroom theatrics, no final confrontation. Just signatures, documents, and the closing of a chapter neither of us had written the ending for, but only one of us had tried to burn down on the way out. Daniel moved into a small apartment across town. He downsized, budgeted, adjusted. I stayed. Not because I won, but because I had held the structure together when it mattered. One evening, as I was clearing dishes, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Thank you for not destroying me completely. I know I deserved worse. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I deleted it. Some conversations don't need replies. Some lessons only work if they echo in silence. Later that night, I tucked Lucy into bed. She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, I like our house now. I smiled into her hair. So do I. When I turned off the light and closed her door, I paused in the hallway and looked around. The same walls, the same floors, a different foundation. Daniel had been right about one thing. Walking out that door changed everything. He thought he was walking toward freedom. What he actually did was hand me the clarity I'd been postponing for years. And by the time he realized the cost of that choice, I was already done paying for it.